Hello! How are you? It's super exciting to see you. We have people in school. It's exciting. But we've got the people that we're always in, and now we've got some big fourth years in doing some subjects. So that's pretty cool. We're looking forward to seeing fifth and sixth years and third years and first years and second years later on in the week. But we're going to try and keep doing the book. That's my plan. I think it'll be all right. It might miss the odd day here and there, but that's life. And there was a sheep shearer going about, so I've been shorn as well. It was handy, 2 meters distance. It was like one of these big extendable chainsaws that you use for trees. That's what you used to cut my hair. It was good. Did a good job, all things considered. Ready. So last we were, Seth had been whispering, so I think we'll pick it up from there. Page 78 we're on. They caught each other's gaze, and it was like they'd both been woken from a nightmare. Ellie fell backwards, smacking against a workbench. Seth leapt to his feet, breathing heavily. His eyes darted round the workshop, pausing on the skeleton of the giant turtle on the mountain of books clustered at the centre of the room, on the harpoon gun, its sharp point glinting in the lamplight. "Where are my brothers and sisters?" he whispered. I don't know," Ellie said. She wondered if his memory was coming back. "Did you see them in the crowd? Do you know their names? What do they look like?" Seth stared at his feet, frowning. "I can't remember." He looked at her seriously. "But I think they need my help." All of a sudden, he clutched a hand to his throat, like he'd been slapped there. "Water!" he yelled hoarsely. "Water!" "Don't shout," Ellie hissed. "There are 2 guardsmen right outside." Seth shook his head. So, he wheezed. "What can they do to me?" Ellie screwed up her face, confused by his confidence. "Kill you, that's what." "I'll tear their heads off with my bare hands." "Oh yeah, I bet you would," she said scornfully. "Don't be stupid. They'll arrest you and march you right back to the bonfire." "I'd like to see them try." Ellie frowned. "They did try, and they would have succeeded if I hadn't rescued you." But Seth had doubled over, wheezing and pawing at his throat. Ellie supposed he hadn't had anything to drink all day. "All right, wait," she said, and hurried towards a sink in the corner. There was a chime of glass against glass, and she turned to see what Seth had removed. Seth had removed a jar of yellow liquid from one of the shelves, and a dead rat in it. "What are you doing?" she said. He had taken the lid off, pressing the edge of the jar to his lips. He coughed and held the jar out at arm's length, causing the rat to swish to one side. Liquid spilled over the edge. "What is that?" he spat. "It's preserving fluid, you idiot. I'm getting you some water." "Why do you have all these dead animals?" "I'm studying them, obviously," Ellie said. She filled a mug with water and rushed back to Seth, shoving it in his hands and carefully returning the dead rat to the shelf. "The experiments are really interesting, actually." "More," said Seth. Ellie stared in disbelief at the empty mug. "How did you drink so fast?" Seth just stared back at her. "It's you," he said. "You were there this morning, on the roof." "Of course I was," Ellie said resentfully. How could he have forgotten that she'd saved him from suffocating to death inside a whale? "You saved my life," he said, and shook Ellie's hand and took Ellie's hand in both of his. "Thank you." "Ellie?" Ellie nodded, and her stomach turned as Seth pulled her sharply forward, so his mouth was right next to her ear. "Ellie, I need to get off of this island," he whispered. "Everyone seems to want to kill me, and I don't think I can stop them, if I'm honest." "You can't stop any of them," she said, shoving him up roughly away. She was starting to regret risking so much to rescue this boy. He seemed half wild and entirely unpredictable. You can't get out of the city either. Why not? Because there's nowhere else to go. There must be other cities. Other cities? Ellie said in astonishment, taking a step away from him. Of course there aren't other cities. There's just the city. For emphasis, she pointed at a faded yellow map pinned to the wall. A single large, jagged shape took up a third of the paper. It was simply labelled the city. Doesn't it have a name? Seth asked. It may have done thousands of years ago. It used to be much, much bigger. Most of it's underwater now. What about these? Said Seth, pointing to a scattering of other smaller shapes around it. Those are farming and hunting islands, said Ellie. I could live in one of them, I bet. I'm good at hunting. You wouldn't last a day. Also, farmers live in the farming islands and they'd be just as afraid of you as people are here. Seth squinted at the map. You get all your food from these tiny islands? But there were thousands of people in that square. The whale lords get most of the food for the city. They have these huge ships that they use to fish and hunt whales. It means they're very powerful. They practically rule the city. Those men who put me in the cage, were they whale lords? Ellie shook her head. They were inquisitors. They protect the city from the enemy. They really do rule the city. Although you don't see them very often. Well, until now. What's wrong? Seth was clutching his head and gritting his teeth. That noise! He looked around. Where is it coming from? Ellie frowned. What noise? That noise, he said, looking at her with wide eyes. He pointed to the ceiling. Listen, it keeps rising and falling. What is it? What does it sound like? Said Ellie uncertainly. Like a voice. A voice shouting. Only I can't figure out the words. Can't hear it, can you? Ellie listened, but heard only silence. She grimaced an apology. No. Seth, did you tell the Inquisition that you could hear voices? What? No, I don't think so. Maybe I can't remember a lot of it. They spent most of the time, he looked briefly ashamed, hitting me. The memory of this seemed to come flooding back to him. That man with one arm. He beat me, he roared. His whole body trembled with rage. Ellie pulled him by the elbow. Shut up, she hissed, looking at the door. You'll get us both caught. I have to get out of here, said Seth, right now. He rushed towards the door, but only managed 3 long paces before tripping. Ow. Be quiet! Seth grabbed his foot and held it up, revealing a bloody gash across the sole. He picked up a jagged curl of metal, one edge now glistening with blood, then glared resentfully around the workshop. Don't you ever clean up, he said, pointing to the crumpled dress smeared with paint. Ellie's clothes were strewn everywhere, together with half-empty glasses of water, cups of tea, scraps of orange peel, and slivers of apple core. He stared at a sheet of paper nearby. A stick of charcoal lay on it that had since been stepped on. A fine black powder sprayed across the floorboards. How can you stand to live in this mess? Listen, they will kill you if you go out there. Seth paused. Because I'm the vessel, he said, remembering. He sat down on the edge of the workbench, inspecting the cut in his foot. They said I had the enemy inside me. Who is the enemy? Ellie sighed. The last god. What happened to all the others? They drowned the world, said Ellie. Only the enemy tricked them, and they ended up drowning too. The city is all that's left. It was built on one of the highest mountains. The only parts that stick that still stick above the sea. So where is the enemy? Said Seth. Well, it depends. Ellie leaned against a bookcase. Sometimes it's floating around in the air, just as harmless as just a harmless spirit. But eventually it chooses a vessel. Then it lives inside the vessel's mind, growing stronger and stronger until it gets so strong that it can burst out of the vessel in its true physical form. It's called manifesting. What's that like? Asked Seth. Ellie shrugged. I've never seen it. The last time it happened was 23 years ago. But apparently, the enemy's true form is terrifying, stronger than 10 men, and much, much faster. That's why the Inquisitors try to find and kill the vessel before the enemy can manifest. But if it does, the Inquisitors have to destroy it. Usually it kills a lot of people first. The person who defeats it gets to become a saint when they die. And what happens to the enemy? Ellie shrugged again. No one really knows. It goes away for a while, sometimes many years, but it always comes back eventually. So they think I have this enemy inside me, said Seth, putting a hand to his heart. For the first time, he didn't seem so sure of himself. That's why all these people were so happy to watch me die? Unfortunately, yes. But how do I know I'm not the vessel? You'd know if you were. You'd be able to see the enemy. That's the vessel's gift. Seth thought about this for a moment. Well then, I know what I have to do, he said. What? Find the real vessel and kill him. Dun, dun, dun. Right, I quite like the explanation of the situation with the enemy taking the vessel, and then once it's taken the vessel, that's like taking over a body, it becomes and then manifests in its true form, which is more powerful than 10 men. But the good thing is, if you defeat it, you get to become a saint when you die. So that sounds quite good. So Seth, the only way to prove his innocence, he thinks, is to find the actual vessel and kill it. So I'm puzzled as to how he's going to find the actual vessel. That's my puzzle for today. And my connection is the city seems to live on fish. Yeah, it doesn't mention anything about chips, but we did have fish and chips for dinner on Saturday night from the chippy. That was exciting. That's like as exciting as it can get right now, isn't it? Anyway, we will resume this tomorrow. I will see you then. Get out, get some exercise, because as far as I can see in Lark Hall, the sun is shining. And it's not too cold. So, exercise, good for the head. See you later. Bye.